Before I start my presentation tonight, I thought it would be great to start off with sharing a clip of Never Alone with you. I love watching that trailer. I never get tired of watching the trailer. Again, my name is Gloria O'Neill, and I am the daughter of Raymond and Bobby O'Neill. My father is from a small village in southwest Alaska, and I am Scots-Irish Iñupiaq Eskimo. I think my other claim to fame is that I have a daughter. Her name is, excuse me, her name is Raven, and she's 21 years old now. So I've been really blessed with leading Cook Inlet Tribal Council. I started my career there when I was probably about 22 years old and had the great opportunity of finding myself in the president and CEO role at age 28. So I've grown with the organization over time. So I'm going to tell you a little story of how we find ourselves in the video gaming industry, which, you know, I'm always amazed every time I step back and I look at the journey over the last 3 to 4 years. I would have never, ever guessed that I would be playing a role in this industry. And I have to tell you, it is completely inspired by Cook Inlet Tribal Council's mission and the love that we have in connecting our people to their potential. CITC's mission is really focused on the advancement of Alaska Native people. Our organization is a little more than 30 years old. We have a budget of about $50 million. I would say, 60-some% of that budget comes from the federal and state government. And our focus, again, is to connect people to their potential, and we do this through partnership. We have 4 main areas of investment. We work with young people in schools. We believe education is the greatest equalizer for all. So we've been really innovative in some of the projects that we've designed, working with the Anchorage School District. It's interesting to note that the Anchorage School District is one of the largest districts in the nation, and we have over 100 languages spoken in our school district. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how cosmopolitan Anchorage has become over the years. We also have an intense focus on connecting people to career pathways, to jobs that are sustainable. And this is one of our largest areas of investment, of working with people to help transition them from welfare to work. We work with individuals who are recovering from drug and alcohol abuse. We have probably one of the largest continuum of care of services in the state. And we work with families who find themselves in crisis and work to help stabilize those families so that they can connect to their potential. And we do all of this working with more than 12,000 Alaska Native and American Indian people every year. And people come from all over the state. So regardless of where Native people come from, we serve them. This is just a quick map. You can see down here, this doesn't do it justice. But you know, Alaska is twice the size as Texas, right? It's huge landmass. And so we are located in Anchorage, which is the largest urban area in the state. And what you see here on the map is the boundaries of our region. I would say we have close to maybe a little bit more than 700,000 people who live in Alaska, and about 350,000 of them live in Anchorage. So several years ago, my board, who's made up of both Native corporate leaders and village representatives, came to me and said, we have to think out of the box. We have to think about what true self-determination means to us and to our mission. And as we were thinking about this, what dawned on us is that we'll never determine our own destiny if we have to react to the whims of Washington, D.C., or what's going on with oil prices. We know that we will always have a special trust relationship with the United States government. But what we wanted to do is find ways that we can bring in unrestricted revenue where we could design programs to meet the needs of our people, instead of having programs designed from Washington, D.C. in small boxes. And so what we did is we started off with our own people first. CITC is all about people. That is our mission. And we looked at investing in coffee shops, lawn maintenance, small business that would create jobs for people, and at the same time give them entrepreneurial skills that they could grow. We are currently investing about $1.3 million annually in those opportunities. I mentioned education a little earlier. It's really important for us to continue to look towards the future and think very creatively about how we invest $4 million in our programs to create opportunities for our young people. In addition to that, we started thinking more holistically of how we could help our people think about their own sustainability and creating a wraparound service approach for our participants. So then we next looked at the organization, because if we're asking our people to think about being sustainable and think about self-sufficiency, we needed to demonstrate it. We needed to model it. And so I said to the board and the senior staff, sometimes they just want to pull their hair out when I come into a room with a new idea. And this was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I said, what if we set ourselves a big goal saying that 50% of our budget would be self-generated? And the CFO almost turned inside and out and like, what the heck are you talking about? We're a grant-funded organization. But we pushed ourselves, and I'm happy to report that today, this is actually a low number. 30% of our budget is self-generated. It's almost near 37% of our budget that is self-generated. And we were really thoughtful in how we invested in facilities and our fixed assets. And so we leveraged those assets over the last 20 years to build out over $30 million, actually close to $35 million in net assets today as an organization that we can continue to leverage. And so we were well on our way and felt that we were making some progress. But about 3 or 4 years ago, we realized to get to the 50% number, we really needed to up the ante. And over time, we'd saved about, I'd say, $6 or $7 million. Now I have to give you context to this. When I stepped in 1998, the organization's budget was about $8 million. We had significantly less programs, and we had less than $70,000 of net assets that CITC owned, compared to today where we're over $35 million, and we had some of those assets in cash. And so it was a long struggle because the money that we receive is government funded. It is, you know, that there are very specific purposes that you can spend that money on. So we were really thoughtful and creative of how we leveraged any type of unrestricted revenue that we received and built out that initial fund to seed a business. And so the board said, be bold, be creative, think outside the box, look at where we can make an investment. First of all, we had to develop capacity. I had to bring on people who really understood and worked in the business world for quite some time. Although I have to say, within our senior staff, we are a leadership staff that all have some sort of background in business. And so that was nice that we'd already had that, that strength built into our leadership team. But we looked at everything when we thought about making an investment. What could it be? Realizing that we wanted to develop a double bottom line social enterprise, meaning our first priority was to make money for CITC in service of its mission and people, and secondly, we wanted to make impact in the world. So as we looked at this big goal, we said to ourselves, what can we invest in that would meet those goals and align with our values as a people, which is very difficult. We looked at everything from traditional real estate to funeral homes, believe it or not. And there just wasn't a there in it. And I kept thinking about our board and the elders and what they said to me. And they said, you know, Gloria, we live in a modern world. Think about using the tools, being in this world today. And don't ever lose sight of our people. So that's when we started thinking about what's out there in technology and then looking at how young our people are and how could we better connect to them in the community. And of course, we talked about our goals around this project and the investment we wanted to make and the outcomes. So we were sitting in a restaurant, it's a great restaurant in Anchorage, and we, about 3.5 years ago, scratching our head, taking all of this into consideration as we were building our capacity. And I said to the team, well, let's look at video games. And they looked at me like, are you nuts? We know nothing about the video gaming industry. And I said, well, our mission is about connecting people to their potential. We do that through partnership, right? So let's find a partner in the world, somebody who aligns with our values as an organization and who's pioneered new fronts in the space. So we went out and we found a firm called Eline Media, whose offices are out of New York. And they're doing really interesting work in the education and video game space. We took about 3 to 4 months to do what we call a landscape analysis, where when we met with Eline Media, first of all, we had them come to the state of Alaska. And I said that when they come up, I want to make sure it's like the 3rd or 4th of January. I want to make sure, I know that sounds funny, but a lot of people come to Alaska in the summer when the fishing is good. And I want to know who they are. Relationships are very important to us. And so they did. They came, I would say, January 4th or 5th. They described it as a snowstorm. It wasn't a snowstorm. It was just snowing. And we sat down for about, I'd say 3 days and just immersed ourselves in the industry, in the space. And from that meeting, what we said we would do is put a little money aside and do a landscape and opportunity analysis, really looking at the challenges, but also the great potential in the video gaming industry. And what we found from that initial collaboration is that there hadn't been a huge investment by a Native American company in North America in this space. And I said, that's what I want to take. And I want to do it with these partners because by that time I realized that their values aligned with ours, and they had the capacity to carry out a mission and a vision that we all had. And it was really exciting because as we were doing this due diligence, what we realized is this was a great way to share who we are as a people with the world. It was a great way where we could share our stories that have been in our community for over 10,000 years. I think one of the most difficult challenges was to go through all the stories that we hold in our culture, many different Native cultures in Alaska, and figure out which region we were going to focus on and what stories. But what was also amazing is that when I brought this idea back to my board and to the elders in the community, they didn't think I was nuts. Now, there are other people who thought I was completely nuts because the video gaming industry is so risky and it's a very messy space. But the elders, they're the ones that said, go for it. They gave me the permission to move forward. And they really felt that this could be a great avenue to share, again, our stories with the world and to connect with our young people. And they also liked the idea that the video gaming space is about a $20+ billion industry and growing. So they also could see that there could be great potential for CITC. So I would say after about 4 months of doing our diligence, we signed our first deal with Eline Media, and that was the making of Never Alone. I have to say since then, we have found that this process has been so incredible, although it's a wild ride, that we have merged our assets that we built throughout this process with our partner, Eline Media, and we've taken 35% of their company. And I'll tell you why, because Never Alone is inspired not only so many of the folks who have played the game, but people who reviewed the game, but it's also inspired in the industry of how you could develop a product that's aligned with values and that could truly reflect a culture and a people and take it to the world. Never Alone, like you heard earlier in the introduction, was released on November 18th, 3 major platforms, Xbox One, PC, PS4, and it was released to, I would say, well, it was in some respects mixed review, but we had incredible support from the industry as we went in to release the game, and have had a lot of positive support since. It is a puzzle platformer game and an indie game. I don't know, how many of you are gamers in the room? So you know what I'm talking about. So 2-person player, who's played Never Alone? Okay, we need to change that. So after this, we're going to change that. Anyway, it is based on a Iñupiaq story called Iñupiaq, and it is about a young Iñupiaq girl and her companion Fox, who are trying to really understand and find the source of an endless blizzard so that they can restore harmony back to the environment. And so Nuna, which is translated into land English, but Nuna is, and it needs to overcome several different challenges in the game. And what I love about the game, it's about 4 to 6 hours of serious gameplay, and that is for individuals who really can play some serious, video games. Like some of you may know what that means. So somebody like me, a lay person, it could take not days, but hours and hours. But it's really a great and engaging process. And I think what was so amazing through this development of Never Alone is we decided to do it differently in the beginning. And what I mean by that is we decided with our partner to pair video gaming experts with Iñupiaq storytellers, writers, elders. We decided that we were going to have a complete immersion process. So we took our video game team, we took them to Barrow, several times. They spent a week in Barrow. We actually, it was really great. I won't get into it right now because I have a lot of other pictures, but we were there when they brought in whales. We got to eat traditional food with the people of Barrow. And we also took some of our elders, our narrators, to Seattle, our writers, where they immersed themselves into the video gaming industry as well in their studios. And so, as I said a little earlier, we went to the people, we asked for their advice, we asked for their guidance. We brought several roundtables together of individuals who reflected, I would say a real diversity in the Native community, and wanted to make sure that we were moving in the right direction from the beginning, and that they were standing with us. That was so important to me, is that they stood with us through this process. So I have to just point out one person here. This right here is my baby girl. That's Raven. She'd be like, "Mom, you're embarrassing me. I'm not even in the room." And the other great thing is that we've had other incredible partners along the way, like Smithsonian. They worked with the Anchorage Museum. They have a Arctic Studies Center in Anchorage, and so we worked with Dr. Crow. We went behind the scenes. He was very, very helpful to us. We wanted to make sure that the video game reflected the authentic world, and so we needed a lot of support and experts. We also worked with the Iñupiaq Heritage Center as well. And so this really goes more into the inclusive development process. And what was incredible to me is that we set a new standard in the industry. I just thought this was doing video games right? Because I didn't know anything about video games. But we definitely set a new standard in how we engaged with experts, where they weren't making games about us as a people or for us, that we were making games together. And that's a completely different paradigm shift that's ever, I think, really been tried in the industry. And the other thing that's really important to us is that our values of respect, accountability, resiliency, and most importantly, interdependence, was reflected through the whole process. We do not work in isolation. We know that we have to work with one another so that we can be successful. And our partners got that at a really deep level. So we engaged about 36 Alaska Native people. They were a part of all of the major design decisions from the beginning to the end. Everything that included the fox, the art, the narration, the story in itself. Community members were really engaged with it. And so there's several pictures I have for you today that reflects the conversation that we have and some of the engagement. This here is James Iñupiaq. I'm not sure if you know James Iñupiaq. He's from Iñupiaq Pass, and he was our narrator in the game. We took a risk. We decided that the game was going to be in Iñupiaq, and that it would be translated into English and several other major languages. We now have it translated into, I want to say, 10 languages, and will be translated into dozens by the end of the year. This speaks a little bit to our partnership with the Arctic Studies Center in Anchorage. This is one of our lead designers, Sean Veshy. He was incredible. He not only has the expertise, he worked on huge titles like Lara Croft Tomb Raider and others, but he brought passion, soul, and really wanted to ensure that the Native community was involved in every decision during the design of the game. The art needed to reflect who we are as a people. We even talked about the details of the rickrack on the parkies and what would be reflected. Our artist that worked on this is born in St. Petersburg. His name is Dima Verakova. Did an incredible job, as you can see in the trailer. It's a beautiful game. But he studied indigenous art in St. Petersburg, and there's a lot of connectivity from Siberia to Alaska, and so he came already inspired into the project, and then he just brought beauty and magic and brought Nuna's journey alive. This is Dima, our artist, and he's, do you know what these are? These are snow goggles, yeah. This is one of our many trips to Barrow. It wasn't that cold. I think it was only like 20 below, and everybody was like, yeah. They were whining about the cold. I said, you don't know anything yet. It was really important for us to engage all ages of the community when we were in Barrow. Our first trip, as I said, we spent nearly a week. We went to the Kivyat Messenger Feast. It's when all the villages of above the Arctic Circle come together, and it's where the people distribute whale, and they celebrate their whaling culture. And so there's a lot of food and dancing, and it was a great way for us to work with our partners, Arctic Slope Regional Corporation, who made an investment. It was a great way for us to come into the community, to be a part of the celebration and a part of their culture. And I have to say, even our video game guys, they came in, they ate muktuk, they ate seal. They just had a great time and really enjoyed themselves. One of my favorite pictures, as you can see, it's the balance between our traditional ways, a young girl eating muktuk, and also the same girl playing a video game. So, as I said, we did this a little differently, and there's some tough choices that we had to make. And what it meant is, as we meaningfully engaged the community, it took a bit more time. And we wanted to make sure that we approached the IP in the most respectful way. This is Minnie Gray. Minnie Gray is the daughter of Robert Cleveland. Nazareth was a really famous storyteller. And Minnie Gray, being the eldest in the family, received the stories from her father. And so when we really decided that we wanted to represent in the game the Arctic Northwest and to focus on the story of Iñupiaq, we went to Minnie Gray. We had to sit down and have several meetings with her and her family over tea, and it was really amazing. She tried to kind of get what we were doing when we started to explain it to her, but then when we showed it to her and gave her a game console and asked her to start playing, she had an incredible time. So she was there with her daughter and her granddaughter, and over time we really figured out how we could appropriately respect Minnie, ensure that we had the rights of the story in the game, and also we respected the U.S. copyright laws as well through that process. So what Never Alone did was it inspired a whole new genre of video games in the world. Can you believe that? A new genre of games called world games, where one can share and extend their culture with the world using the tools of video games. And what we found is when we went out before release and started talking to press and the gaming community, they were so receptive that they wanted something different. They're curious people in the world who want to learn about others' culture, and this is a real engaging way to do so. And so it's been fabulous since the release of Never Alone to have the support that we have and to know that we've made a big impact in the industry. And what we want to do now is focus on working with other partners like CITC from other communities and cultures around the world and develop a portfolio of games called World Games. Not everybody wants the big $300 million titles, the shoot 'em up games, right? So this is the result. About 6 months later, we have over 2 million players of Never Alone. We've been on over 75 Best of 2014 lists. We've been written up about 1,000 times from various media across the globe. We just recently launched an extension called Foxtails, the game. And we had a call from the New Yorker Presents and also Al Jazeera. So they flew to Anchorage, did a major interview with them, and flew to Barrow to interview the people of Barrow as well who were involved. But you can see that it was critically reviewed, and it's been quite successful. And of course, we have to put a picture in there of our British BAFTA award that we received. And people said, aren't you going to London to pick it up? And I said, no, I've got a lot of work to do in Alaska. So it was really great with the support that we've received globally, and also with the recognition as, for example, our team that was paired together. This is a picture of Ishmael Hope, who is Tlingit in Iñupiaq, and he served as our writer in the game, along with Dima Verakova, who's the artist. So we thought that they would be perfectly paired to go and to receive the award on behalf of our community. And apparently, when Ishmael went up to receive the award, he spoke in Iñupiaq, and he thanked the elders first. It gives me goosebumps. And it was just really beautiful because it demonstrated the collaboration and the process that we went through to make Never Alone. We also took a couple of other risks. We did added different elements to the game, and I'm going to share a couple of those with you. We have about 26 cultural insights. They're downloadable videos that talk about life in the Arctic and talk about, for example, what you'll experience in the game, the spiritual world. Talk about other stories that you find in the game as Nuna and Fox is making their way through challenges, like, for example, the Northern Lights. We have a story in Alaska where ever since I was a little girl, I remember that if you go out and it's really cold at night, and it's, probably, well, it's very cold, winter time, and you look up into the sky, a clear sky, and the Northern Lights come out, that you better go back inside soon or cover your head, because if not, the lights will come alive and they'll swoop down, and they're like kids who've passed, right? They'll swoop down, they'll take your head off and play Eskimo football with your head. So you better cover your head or keep warm. And what was really amazing is we were able to, and these are stories that all Alaska Native groups share, and we were able to reflect those in the game as well. So you have these cultural insights that talk about, from people's perspectives, Native people's perspectives, of what the stories meant to them. As you know, storytelling is very alive and well in our world. I think we all have a tradition of storytelling. And it's just amazing that we're able to share this with the world and that it's been successful. We're going to make money on the game. Thank goodness. It was a risk that's paid off, not only for our community, but more importantly, for the mission of CITC and the spirit in which we made the investment. And, I've been asked, why this? And what I'd like to say is, you go along in life, and every once in a while, it might happen 2 or 3 times in your life that you just come across something that you have to do. You know it. Whether you fail or succeed, that's the path for you. And this is what I felt when we started on this journey. So I say to all of you out there, you ever have a big challenge or risk in front of you, be smart about it, but really listen to your heart, because it pays off. So I'm going to share with you a couple of these cultural insight videos, and then we can maybe have some time for questions and answers.
One of the things I think a lot of people need to understand is we aren't a museum piece. The Iñupiaq people are a living people and a living culture. Even though we're in northern Alaska, which covers this vast area from Nome all the way over the Canadian border, is that there is this extreme value of interconnectedness and interdependence.
It's a hunting society, a gathering society from thousands of years.
This is what creates our culture.
That special relationship between humans and the natural world and the animals, and that it teaches you how to have a society that doesn't do too much harm to the world.
Love and respect for nature, for one another, for our elders. Very, very fundamental value, key to life.
Our values are something that bind us all. The importance of sharing with one another, the importance of spirituality, and the connection to the land, our traditions, how we hunt, sharing of stories and songs and dances.
I'm Iñupiaq. I'm from the Arctic Ocean.
Iñupiaq, I am Iñupiaq.
It's very important to me. It's who I am as a person.
And we're very proud of who we are, and we want to continue that.
Sila is the weather. It also means the atmosphere. Here's the Nuna, or the land, and it's anything from the land into the moon, the sun, the stars. That's Sila.
It's a very spiritual, and we have a relationship with Sila. Sila has a soul in the same way we do as people, in the same way animals do.
I think spirit helpers in and of themselves are really about how we're connected with things. And so it may be that there is a spirit helper that shows themselves as a bird to show you the way home, or it may be a spirit helper that actually decides to show themselves with the face and body of a man instead of their animal form. And so I think one of the things that's hard to understand is that it's not one way of seeing things, it's one way of knowing you're connected to everything.
We've always had that spirituality of everything around us.
It's the interaction you have with the air you breathe, the ocean that you gather resources from, the rivers from which you gather fish, the tundra from which you pick berries, the animals that give themselves. It's all of that.
So these videos are embedded in the game, and when a player players, when they finish a challenge, they can unlock these videos and learn a little bit about the story behind it or the challenge itself. So thank you. Any questions? Okay.